All right, 5.3, medians and altitudes of a triangle. All right, so in exercises 8 through 12, we're going to use the figure in the given information. So 8 through 12, they tell us that P is the centroid of triangle DEF. EH is perpendicular to DF. DH is equal to 9. DG is equal to 7.5. EP is equal to 8. And DE is equal to FE. And then draw this as best I can over here. Okay, so that's all given information that they've given us. And then they're wanting us to find different values from this. So 8, they want us to find FH. So that's this piece down here. So these are, oh, I forgot to mark this. This is also marked this way. All right, so we know that this comes down through, right, and is intersecting at its midpoint. So what does that mean has to be true about FH? Yep. So this is equal to 9 because DH is equal to 9, which is equal to FH. Um, 10. Find pH. So pH is this value right here. So based on the theorem, what was it, 5.7? Yeah, the concurrency of medians of our triangle, that would tell us that EH, or well, let me, hold on. EP is equal to 2/3 of EH. Okay? So if this is 2/3 of EH, then that means that this has to be 1/3 of EH. So that means that then pH is 1/3 of EH. So I know that EP is 8. So I'm going to put that in here. So I have 8 is equal to 2/3 of EH. Now, I don't know what EH is, so that means I'm going to have to solve for EH and then use that to find pH. Okay, now, some of you may quickly see what this is without having to do a whole lot of math, and that's fine as long as you get it right. But if you need to use the formula, then use the formula. So we would multiply then by 3/2 on both sides. So that way this cancels over here. 2 goes into 8 4 times, so I end up with 4 times 3 is 12. And so that is EH. But that's not what it asked me for. It asked me for pH. So I can either take and plug this 12 in to this other formula over here, because if this is 2/3, this has to be 1/3. Or I can just say 12 minus 8 equals, and I can find that value there. So either way is fine. So I can either do EH minus EP equals pH, or I can use this formula here. Really doesn't matter. So I have 1/3 times 12. 3 goes into 12 4 times, so pH is equal to 4, which is what I was trying to solve for. If I did this over here this way, I would have 12 minus 8, which is equal to 4. And so we would have pH is 4 if we did it that way. So your one number should always end up being like double of what your other number was, basically. Well, not necessarily. Technically. 1/3, 2/3. Gonna be honest, that's the only problem in this is the only type of this problem in the whole book. So does anybody have any questions about this? Okay. Obviously you'll have the odd ones, but what?
Will something like that question be on the exam?
Could be.
What about the quiz? Like, will we be quizzed on this kind of stuff? Or
Yeah, you'll have a quiz on 5.1 to 5.3. It'll be like the review, like normal.
If we just put pH equals 4 and we don't show our work, we cannot.
You'd lose all the points if you just give me an answer. If you show some work, then I might be able to give you some partial credit. So as long as you're confident, then that's fine. But
So do we only, like, if we can do the math in our head, do we only have to put, like, the EP equals 2/3 kind of thing? And just kind of work towards it?
I mean, I would at least write the initial formula down, because then that way I can be like, okay, you know kind of what you're doing. You're not just winging it. But they're relatively easy, so if you can figure it out, I mean, if you have the right answer, I'm going to give it to you. All right, something a little bit more challenging with this. In the diagram of triangle DEF, which is what's up here, EP over EH is equal to 2/3. Okay, now they got that from this formula right here. We had EP is equal to 2/3 of EH, so if I wanted to get the 2/3 by itself, I would divide by EH, so EP over EH is equal to 2/3. Okay, different ways we can modify this formula. So with that information, they want me to find pH over EH and pH over EP. So what I would do is think about these things as like fractions of like the thirds, right? Because I know that EP is 2/3 of EH, but we commented up here that pH is 1/3 of EH. So that means if pH is 1/3 of that value, then I can put 1/3 here. So I have pH over EH, and some of you may already see what the answer is going to be to this one, but so pH that's 1/3 of the whole value. Now, EH is the whole thing, which means as a fraction, that would be 3 out of 3. Okay? Or just 1, depending on how you want to think about it. But this will help us set up the next one. When we divide by fractions, we multiply by their reciprocal, so we keep the top one. And then we multiply by, we would flip this fraction. Now, because it's 3 over 3, I don't really need to do that, but it's being multiplied by 3 over 3. 3's cancel. This is equal to 1/3. Now, the reason I said, some of you may have seen this from the beginning, is because if we're looking at pH over EH, that's no different than me taking and dividing this formula that I had up here that I wrote for you, like I did with this one, to get this value of just saying divide by EH, and then pH over EH equals 1/3. So you didn't necessarily need to do this, but this will help us to see the next one a little bit easier. Yes?
So like since we found EH and pH in the previous problem, could we just do like
Yeah, you could. Yep. This is just like more generic if you didn't know what their values were, we could use this formula to do it. Now, obviously it says use the diagram, so yes, we obviously have that information. But if you're like, I don't know if I was completely right with my, EH being 12, you could still use this formula without having that. So then that's pH over EH. pH over EP. So pH we said is 1/3 of the whole thing. But EP is 2/3 of the whole thing. So we have 1/3 over 2/3. Or like what Harrison was saying, we already know what pH is. We know that that's 4. We know that EP is 8, so we could do it that way as well. But this is just your generic form of that. So divide by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. So we have 1/3 times, we flip this fraction over, 3 over 2. 3's cancel, and I get 1/2. So if we used the values like Harrison brought up instead, we know that pH was equal to 4, and EP from the diagram was 8. We'd have 4 over 8, and that's 1/2. So if you already know those values, you can do it this way. If you don't, then we would have to do it this way of thinking about which things they are. Questions about that? All right, so if I took this triangle here and I wanted to balance it, I could balance it on this point P here, okay, the centroid of this triangle, okay. Saying that, and maybe you'll pick up that you're going to need that to possibly be something in your quiz review or your quiz. Okay, well, that's all that mathematically we're doing with this section. So I'm going to tell you that your problems, it's going to be the longest homework you've had all year, guys, are, I'm going to give you a couple other things just to look at definitions, 3, 5, and then 9 and 11. But before you do this, we're going to do our triangle activity that goes with questions 13 through 16. We're going to do, this is our triangle folding activity. But we're going to do it together so that you can see it. If you're so ambitious that you want to try it on a not acute triangle, you can print an acute, or you can even draw your own triangle that's not acute, and you can try it and you'll see that it works as well. But that's just what we're going to do for this one.